Part 317. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3169. The guards and the yamen of the Bai family also fell to the ground clutching their chests. The symptoms were milder. They turned their heads away from the stench, and threw up with a vomit sound when they bent over. So this section of the road, which was not smelly, stinks even more. Joe Man took out his mask from the medicine box and put it on. Zhenggu also took out his mask and took out a spare for everyone. Joe Man looked over and said, "You actually have spares. Next time, I will prepare more cakes for you." Zhenggu said, "My wife prepared it for me." Joe Man gave him a thumbs up, then opened the medicine box and grabbed several medicines and handed them to Zhenggu. "This is for our people." He picked up a few other medicinal herbs and wrapped them in paper. "This is for them, but do we have medicine jars?" Zhenggu looked at Joe Man innocently, and finally Daji found a kettle in the belly of the car, which was for Joe Man to boil water for tea. A few good guards went to pick up firewood to boil water, or to carry their own people out of it. By the time they lifted their people to one side, the stench was almost gone, and fewer people vomited, but most of them were weak in their hands and feet, let alone run, and couldn't even stand up. The guards hesitated with the rope in their hands. "Brother Daji, do you still need to tie it like this?" "Tied?" Daji's face sank when he thought of their discussion just now. "Tied to death, so that they can't escape even if they regain their strength. Since they were trying to kill Joe Man, why are they polite?" "Yes." Joe Man first gave the guards acupuncture, relieved their symptoms, and then carefully recorded their pulse. "Actually, this medicine can be improved a little more. It should reduce the symptoms of vomiting and make people feel faster." Powerless guards. The yamen was even more frightened and couldn't help saying, "Master Joe, can you prepare some antidote in advance next time?" Joe Man nodded again and again. "This is my negligence, because I basically can't use these medicines, so I gave the antidote to others. Next time I have to bring some myself, just in case." Although medicinal herbs for detoxification are very common, it is too troublesome to have to boil them in such a situation. The yamen and the guards swallowed nervously. Zhenggu asked curiously while burning the fire and boiling the medicine, "Master, since you can't use this medicine, why do you carry it with you?" Joe Man paused for a while and then said, "When I go out, I originally wanted to be prepared, but I have gone out so many times, and this thing has really never been used." She defended, "They are in the travel bag. If there are not too many of them, we can't beat them. I can't remember this thing in my travel bag for a while." Zhenggu didn't doubt, but got excited. His eyes lit up. "This is fate, Master. Isn't there a lot of this kind of medicine in Jianghu? My father also lied to me, saying that the most common sweating medicine in Jianghu is very harmful. If the dosage is not careful, it is easy to confuse people or kill them." "Joe Man, your father is right." On Thursday, Lang also encountered Mongolian sweat medicine when he was in business, and brought it back to her to see. She has studied it, and good Mongolian sweat medicine has such problems, not to mention bad Mongolian sweat medicine. Accidentally kills people. She said, "My stinky medicine powder is actually a different kind of drug. When a very small amount is inhaled, the effect is similar to that of Mongolian sweat medicine. However, my medicine is much safer than Mongolian sweat medicine. Even if you inhale too much, you will feel dizzy, and it's just vomiting and diarrhea. Unless a person is weak, he will not die. Can all come to be bandits? Can there be weak people? There really is." Daji asked someone to carry someone up. "Miss, come and take a look, he seems to be dying." This person was tied and led down from the mountain by Joe Man and the others. At this time, he was lying on the ground and snorting lightly from time to time. His face was already blue, and he looked like he was breathing a lot and not breathing in. Joe Man was startled. "Why is this person so serious?" You stuffed the powder in his nose. Daji, I don't, but this person looks weaker. Joe Man had already taken the needle bag over, and he ripped open his clothes to expose his chest and stabbed the needle. After a few stitches, his face was not so pale, but he still couldn't wake up. Joe Man touched his pulse, frowned slightly, and grabbed his hand to see that there were calluses on the side of his middle finger and the third section of his index finger, and the rest of his fingers were smooth, so he couldn't help raising his eyebrows. Scribe. The scribes came to rob. Daji also looked at each other carefully, and said after a while, Miss, this seems to be the person called Mrfu by the bandits. Joe Man immediately touched his body, and finally took out a sachet, which Julan made for her, but the incense in the sachet was made by herself. Joe Man put the sachet on the tip of his nose, and urged Zhenggu, boil the medicine, this can't be dead, he's probably a big fish. Even if she somehow guessed why she was attacked, she still wanted to make a confession. It would be better if there was evidence. As soon as Zhenggu heard this, he immediately fanned the air vigorously, making the fire a little bigger. Saving people is like putting out a fire. It's too late to boil it slowly, so although the efficacy of the medicine will be a little bad, but save the life first. After the medicine was boiled, Joe Man first took half a bowl to cool it down, and then poured it into the Mr. Fu. When his face was a little better, he went to see the bandits who were thrown by the roadside. Joe Man paced forward, squatted in front of them and talked to them, am I calling you bandits or assassins? They were lying on the ground weakly, looking at Joe Man blankly after hearing the words, and finally a person who was not so dizzy said, we don't know what your words mean, we just want to rob some money to spend, it's nothing assassin. Joe Man shook his head and said, you already know who I am, yet you dare to rob me and say that you are not an assassin. Do you think I am thinking with my toes just like you? The other party was so dizzy at this time that he couldn't think, and when he thought about it, he wanted to vomit, so he could only look at Joe Man with a pale face. Joe Man said to them, you all called me adults, obviously you know who I am and what I do, come and kill me, how hard do you think about it, don't you know that the doctor is good at poisoning? I can't beat you, but it can poison you. Poisoned, 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 I can choose, why do you think so hard? They are about to cry, and they don't know, Joe Man is not a doctor, is he a genius doctor? Why use poison? Who ever heard of her being poisonous? Their medicines were not ready yet. Joe Man looked at the time and felt that it was impossible to change places before dark. Daji had already asked people to start stationing nearby, so she was really bored, so she could only look for the detoxification. They chatted. I heard that there is a kind of aquatic plant in the south of the Yangtze River. It is poisonous. Eating it can make people feel like a dream. No one among the assassins paid attention to her. She continued, I haven't seen it before, but when I heard about it, I was thinking, if adding a few herbs to the mix can make people see the most terrifying things in reality, it's also hallucinogenic. But it's an alternative hallucination that can be controlled. Joe Man chatted with them so much that she almost forgot their medicine. It was Zhenggu who came up with the medicine pot, only then did she know that their medicine was ready. She held back her words with some regret, and waved her hand generously, you drink the medicine first, and we will talk after drinking the medicine. Assassins. See you tomorrow, good night. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3170. The medicine given to the assassins is different from the medicine given to the guards. It can only relieve their vomiting symptoms, and people are still weak. However, Daji was very cautious and tied all the people with ropes. The assassins were lying on their sides on the ground. Seeing that Joe Man came to chat with them again, they couldn't help moaning, and said with a painful expression, it hurts, my lord, my hand hurts too much, you can loosen it up for me. Untie it. The person lying next to him immediately said, "Yes, it hurts a lot for me too, my lord. Do you want to see if my hand is about to break?" Joe Man didn't look at their hands, but said with a sympathetic expression, "If the hands are tied too tightly, it is easy to die. The hands and feet are just like the internal organs of humans, and they need blood circulation to keep them active. You see, human flesh without blood is pale and colorless, and even if such flesh is taken back, it will not survive, but will rot and tire the skin that comes in contact with it. It's the same with your hands. If you tie it too tightly, the blood will not reach the wrist and palm. After a long time, the wrist and palm will sting first, and then slowly lose consciousness. When you no longer feel the wrist, the hand will sting. It's dead." The more Joe Man spoke, the more excited he became. He squatted up a little, and the more he said, "Except for the hands, other parts of the body are the same. For example, if you maintain a position for a long time, the muscles will be injured, and the blood circulation will be biased. They don't feel it at first, but when you restore their original posture, you will find tingling and numbness. You may feel better when you move, but the damage that has already been caused cannot be recovered naturally. It will always exist, although you feel it less than." The assassins lay flat on the ground, looking up at the starry sky with expressionless faces, not caring at all about the pressure on their arms. At this time, they just wanted Joe Man to keep his mouth shut. Joe Man finally finished the science, and then looked at their posture regretfully. "You lie down like this, it won't take too long. In another quarter of an hour, you will feel the numbness and tingling in the arms below the shoulders, so that's fine. Only in one night, not only will you lose your wrist and palm, but your entire arm, which saves more fabric." The assassins were startled, and they really felt the numbness of their arms. They were busy lying on their sides, but because their hands and legs were tied and their bodies were weak, they fluttered several times before turning over. Joe Man has been sitting on the side, propping his chin and watching, with relish on his face. An assassin couldn't help his anger. "Aren't you an imperial doctor or a doctor? Everyone says that doctors are benevolent, how come you don't see any kindness at all?" Joe Man clicked his tongue twice. "You are not patients, you are assassins who killed me. How stupid would I be to take my own life to fulfill you?" "But..." Joe Man tilted his head and said, "Actually, it's not impossible. If you turn to us and become my people, I can be a doctor or an imperial physician and treat you with all my heart." The assassins did not speak. Joe Man felt a little tired from sitting like this, so he changed his posture, simply put his feet forward, put his hands back, crossed his legs, and asked swayingly, "What are you afraid of? You are all caught by me, what can they do to you? I'm different. Now your life and death depend on me. If you don't tell me, I can still discuss with you in a good voice. When I return to Bihai County, I will use all the 18 sets of punishments again, tisk tisk tisk." The assassins had already prepared to die in battle. In fact, they were not so afraid of death, but they were very afraid of this torture. The assassins showed remorse. They knew that they shouldn't have stayed in the afternoon for detoxification. Even if they tried their best to run out, it's better to be poisoned than to be tortured to death, right? I also regret that they drank the medicine just now. They should rather die than let go, and poison themselves to death. Joe Man saw through their plans at a glance, sighed, shook his head and said, "You guys, it's too simple to think about. To be honest, I'm a good person, and I've met good people before, so these poisons have never been used. You are the first group of bad people I have met, and the first group of people who have tried my poison. If you don't say anything, you have used 18 sets of severe punishments later. If you don't say anything, you will be considered arrogant," Joe Man said enthusiastically. "Of course such a strong-willed person must make the best use of everything." There was a faint light in the eyes of the assassins, and they looked at Joe Man with some hope. Joe Man said excitedly, it just so happens that I still have a lot of medicines that no one has tried. I am a good doctor and a good imperial doctor. I can't let patients come to test medicines, and the death row inmates in Bihai County have to be sent to the state city for review. Every time I try a drug, I have to send it back to the capital to find the prisoners sentenced to death by the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple. It would be nice to have you. I can try a lot of drugs. The assassins froze, their whole body stunned. Seeing their unlovable appearance, Joe Man was too busy. Don't worry, if you try the poison, I will prepare an antidote for you. After all, you have to try the antidote to see if it works, but there are areas for improvement. Some poisons will rot the flesh, and the whole body will be like leprosy, but you don't have to worry too much. My sword doctor is also very famous, and the craftsmanship of removing meat is very good. The assassins turned paler. Zheng Gujuan just heard this paragraph when he came over for dinner. He shook his head helplessly, stepped forward, and said, "Master, let's eat. Next time, let Master bring Zibing or Julan, otherwise, what if he can't control the expression on his face when he hears these words, and let the enemies see the flaw?" Joe Man hurriedly sat down, put the tray on his lap, took a sip of soup to a group of hungry assassins, and then ate a bun with chopsticks, sighing while eating, "There's no water nearby, I'll cook it for you guys. I've lost a lot of water for medicinal purposes, so I can't even wash my hands now, alas." Unfortunately, the assassins all faced her, and when they saw her eating, they couldn't help swallowing. "Want to eat?" Joe Man asked them while holding the buns. Although they thought she would not give it, the assassins nodded and looked at her expectantly. "Unfortunately, there are not many of us. After all, no one expected to encounter assassins on the road, so we only brought our own share of dry food. You have already taken up our share of water, but you can't let you take up the ration anymore." An assassin said, "Sir, can we just drink water if we don't want steamed buns?" "No," Joe Man said with a serious face, "the water is still reserved for you to boil medicine, it is for life-saving, how can you drink it?" Assassins, water is also life-saving. They didn't feel thirsty at first, but Joe Man was drinking soup in front of them, and the assassins felt hungry and thirsty. Seeing her indifferent, they were angry in their hearts. Sure enough, the officials are not good people, look at this hard-hearted person. Joe Man was still talking to them, "Do you Jiangnan people also like to eat steamed buns?" Joe Man, scared you to death. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3171. An assassin subconsciously retorted, "Our buns in Jiangnan are much more delicious than yours. The skin is thin and the stuffing is thick. You can't eat it with a thick skin and a small stuffing." Joe Man had a look of disbelief. "Although I haven't been to Jiangnan, but my brother has been there, why didn't I know it was so good? The buns I'm eating now are those made by my sister-in-law, the best buns. Where are you? Which steamed buns stand to eat?" Assassin said, "Chenji. You go to Yangzhou City to inquire, except for the steamed buns, his family has done a good job of breakfast. Besides steamed buns, what else is there to eat in Yangzhou?" When Mr. Fu faintly woke up and finally opened his eyes to see the dim figure in front of him, they had already talked about the famous scenery in Yangzhou from the steamed buns in Yangzhou. It was precisely because of the chatter that rushed to his ears that he had not been able to sort out his current situation for a long time. When he found that he was tied up and unable to move, he faintly felt that something was wrong. He tried to turn his head to look, only to see that his companions were also tied, and his hands were not tied to his side, but tied behind him, his legs were tied, and he was sitting at this time. Have fun chatting with their targets. He turned his head hard to look over his head, and saw that there were other companions lying down, trying to sit up. Perhaps one of the guards saw that he was working too hard, and he reached out and grabbed him, making him sit up successfully, so that he could look at their adults, and then join the chat together. Mr. Fu was distracted, and when he came back to his senses, they had already talked about the noodles in Suzhou, and an assassin said with disgust, "The noodles in Suzhou are so unpalatable. Where did you eat? Did you not eat well?" The assassins were hungry at this time, and said while swallowing, "I ate it at the roadside tea shop. Now that I think about it, it doesn't seem to be very difficult to eat." It is hard for Mr. Fu to imagine what happened while he was in a drowsy period. The two sides got along so well. Seeing that they still wanted to continue talking, his hair stood upright, and he interrupted them with a hoarse voice, "Shut up." The assassins turned their heads and looked at each other, very surprised. "Mr. Fu, are you awake? Master Zhou's medicine is really useful. You fainted before, your face turned blue, and you thought you would not survive. As expected of an imperial physician." "Yes, as expected of an imperial physician." Zhou Man cupped his hands again and said with a smile, "I won the award, I won the award." "Mr. Fu, could it be that this medicine can also reduce intelligence? They are the relationship between the assassin and the target, and now it is the relationship between the arrest and the arrest. Why can they get along so well?" The assassins also felt that they got along quite well, so one of them asked cautiously, "Sir, can we drink water?" Zhou Man tilted his head to think. Everyone looked at her nervously, and saw her eyes swept over the confused Mr. Fu and smiled. "Okay." She turned her head and said to a guard, "Go get a pot of water." The guard glanced at them, turned to carry the teapot, took 4 or 5 bowls in his hands, and gave them to the guards next to them, poured them into the bowls, and let the guards feed them water. 2 sips per person, 1 drink to the other. Seeing that there was no water to drink as long as the assassin raised his head, the assassin in the back was reluctant to raise his head, biting the bowl and drinking tons of water. But the guards were the ones who let them drink at will. Seeing that they were too much, they reached out and pushed their heads away, and put away the bowl for the next person to drink. "We don't have much water, so we should drink less," he complained to them again. "It's your fault, you can't find a place for ambush, and finding a place near a water source is not as much a problem as it is now." The assassins quietly looked at Mr. Fu. The location and strategy were all set by Mr. Fu, and they just followed orders. Zhou Man also looked at Mr. Fu and looked at him with his chin up. The assassins were drinking water or waiting for the water to drink. Now that she was ignored, she stared at Mr. Fu. Mr. Fu's back was slightly stiff, and he felt that Zhou Man's eyes were very meaningful, which made him very uncomfortable. Zhou Man smiled at him, beckoned to call for a guard, pointed at him, and said, "He has a deep poison and needs another medicine. Take him to the other side for treatment, and prepare some food and water for him." Hearing the words, the assassins looked at Mr. Fu enviously. Mr. Fu was about to speak, but the guards had already stepped forward, blocking everyone's side from left to right. Daji turned sideways and asked them to carry the person down, then turned his head and said to Zhou Man, "Miss, it's late at night, it's time for you to rest." Zhou Man nodded at the assassins and turned to rest. Zhenggu hurriedly followed, and when he was far away, he asked, "Master, what about these people?" "What do you mean?" "What do I mean? Should I send someone back to Qingzhou City, or take it to Shaoguan County?" "Of course they were sent back to Bihai County," Zhou Man said. "I live in Bihai County. They are assassins. They want to kill me. Naturally, they will be managed by Bihai County, and they will be brought back to Bai County Magistrate." Daji was worried. "Miss, why don't we go back to Bihai County first, and then go to Shaoguan County another day? What if there are still people in ambush ahead?" "Zhou Man, you look down on them too much. Jiangnan is so far away from here, it's beyond my expectation that they can send so many people to kill me. She didn't think there was someone in ambush in front of her, just turned around and ran away. Joe Man said to Keek in his heart, "Really, Keek? If you need advanced scanning and warning, please pay for points. Joe Man, when you scan the recordable things, check to see if there are any suspicious people." Coco was silent. Joe Man said this, but people have already deducted a number of points to Keek, and then said to Daji, "Tomorrow, let someone send them back to Bihai County, we will continue to Shaoguan County. By the way, take that Mr. Fu escort them separately, don't let them meet, and don't let them talk. Good luck." Joe Man got into the car and wrote a letter to Bai Shan, and Zhenggu held the lamp for her, but now he can't come back to his senses. "Master, who wants to kill you? Why? Is it because the local medical office runs it?" He thought it was too scary, and he really couldn't figure out why. Joe Man looked up at him between writing letters, shook his head and said, "If you can't figure it out, don't think about it. You can think of someone killing me because of the medical department. It's really embarrassing for you." Joe Man reassured him, "Don't worry, they didn't kill me because of the medical department, but because of the county magistrate." "By, Master," Zhenggu threw himself at the medical office. He had just arrived in Bihai County a few months ago, and he was still a little confused for a while. Joe Man nodded and said, "Because of the salt field and salt administration, our medical department is nothing compared to them, so why is it worth worrying about? And the medical department is newly opened. Most of this cake is newly made, and the other half is old. Although we took part of the old cake, we also shared a lot of the new cake, so even if there are objections people, it's not like they are going to kill me." Joe Man said, "The salt field is different from the salt administration. The magistrate of Bai is trying to grab food from the tiger's mouth, so my pond of fish was affected." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3172. Zhenggu was dumbfounded. Joe Man wrote the letter, blew it, and when the ink was dry, he put the envelope up, reached out and patted his shoulder. "Don't understand." Zhenggu nodded. Joe Man said, "Then don't think about it, waste your brains, and think more about the medical department." She said, "Tomorrow we will go to Shaoguan County. Mr. Qian should have been there for a while. Although I decided to hand over the construction of the medical office in Shaoguan County to Wei and Man, if you want to take over the entire Qingzhou medical department in the future, if you are going to do it, then you should pay more attention to the construction. It will be difficult at the beginning, and you should help more." Zhenggu responded, reluctantly taking his mind out of the assassination. Joe Man handed the letter to the guards and asked them to escort them back to Bihai County with several yamen, while she took Daji and Zhenggu to Shaoguan County alone. She guessed right, it was true that there were only assassins in this way, and they did not suffer any more accidents until Shaoguan County. The magistrate of Shaoguan County has long been waiting. For more than a year, he has seen the development of Bihai County, and because Bai Shan taught the method of drying salt, he has been in close contact with Bihai County for more than half a year, and naturally saw the role of the medical department in the county. In the nearby counties, how many strong men go to Bihai County because of the convenience of seeking medical treatment? Just look at the population he lost last year. Although their family is still in Shaoguan County, there are still people farming the fields at home, or renting them out, but people have gone to Bihai County. Who knows if they will directly relocate to Bihai County in the future? Therefore, the magistrate of Shaoguan County is not as disgusted with the medical department as last year, but has found a lot of benefits of running a medical department. It is also because of this that when Mr. Qian came to talk about the construction of the medical office, he was very enthusiastic in sorting out the houses in the county government office for him to choose. Mr. Qian carefully selected 3 courtyards for Joe Man to decide, these 3 are okay, the others are either too small or inappropriate locations. Mr. Qian said, the other reason is that because of the structure of the house, there are many rooms and few rooms, which is not suitable for the medical office at all. He said, actually, the most suitable one is to build one yourself. Zhou Man said without raising his head, no money. She brought Zhenggu over. In addition to looking at the house, she also had to communicate with the doctor in charge of the local pharmacy and learn about the local situation with the county magistrate. She stayed in Shaoguan County for 2 days, selected a house, and met with the doctor in charge of the pharmacy. She made sure that everyone welcomed the construction of the hospital, at least on the surface, so she was satisfied. Back with people. Mr. Qian followed her back, and when he was on the road, he felt something was wrong. Sir, why are there so many guards? Zhou Mandao, the county magistrate sent me to pick me up. It just arrived last night. What's wrong? Mr. Qian's eyes swept across the guards beside the car. It's nothing. There is a feeling that this trip Zhou Man has brought more guards than ever before, and the guards are more cautious. It was only when he returned to Bihai County that he heard about Zhou Man's attack and assassination. Mr. Qian was startled and asked, Your Excellency isn't injured, right? Why don't you say anything? You should turn around immediately after encountering such a thing. Why did you risk going to Shaoguan County? Zhou Man waved his hand indifferently and said, It turns out that my speculation is correct, it's fine. She ran to find Bai Shan. Bai Shan just came out of the prison, his body was stained with blood, and his face was cold. When he saw Zhou Man, he stopped a little, the cold energy on his face dissipated, a smile appeared on his face, and he walked towards her quickly. You're back. Zhou Man also trotted forward, nodding with shining eyes. Did they recruit? Have you eaten? The two asked at the same time. Bai Shan smiled and said, No way, but I know everything I should know, and now the confession from Mr. Fu is missing. Zhou Man naturally smelled the blood on Bai Shan's body and was slightly surprised. His bones are so hard. Bai Shandao, not only him, but those assassins didn't confess. They just talked to them according to your words, and they were more sure of their origins. They should have families in each other's hands, he said. After thinking about it, Bai Shan said with a smile, but it's much easier to deal with them instead of the dead soldiers they sent. Knowing their origins, they can draw a portrait and send it to Yang Zhou to check with Brother Yang. The confession is complete. The front of the chain of evidence is actually not that important. Zhou Man nodded, exhaled, and hurriedly asked, What about you, are you in danger? Bai Shan shook his head. Let's not say that in Bihai County, they are not good at doing things, and they will fail if they do. Even if they can succeed, they should not want to kill me. Why? Because the salt field is in the county seat, the method of drying the salt has already been spread, and I even built the wharf. If I die, the court will send another person to take over the salt field and wharf. The people who come here can continue as long as they are loyal and obedient. What I have to do, Bai Shan said, Jiangnan doesn't have the ability to put such confidence in front of His Majesty and the Crown Prince, so as long as the salt field and the wharf are still there, it's the same with me or not. But you're different. Bai Shan's eyes flashed coldly, and he reached out and stroked her hair softly, and said softly, If something happens to you, I'll be in a big mess, maybe I'll make a fool of myself in order to fight them. In this way, I am more beneficial to them than changing a county magistrate. The other thing is to destroy the salt field, Bai Shan said. This method is the most effective. If the salt field is destroyed, even if it can be rebuilt, it will not be able to build to the scale in a short period of time. In this way, Jiangnan can regain the right to speak in the salt policy. Zhou Man, so the salt field was attacked. Bai Shan nodded, smiled, and comforted her. It's not an attack, it's just that someone tried to touch it and was discovered. The matter is not as simple as what Bai Shan said. In just a few days, The salt field has been targeted 3 times, and the poisoning almost succeeded. Fortunately, everyone is now closed, except for the recruited long-term workers, local villagers, and soldiers. Apart from them, even the relatives of the villagers were not allowed to enter. So when someone bypassed the patrolling soldiers and sneaked in to be poisoned, they were discovered by the local villagers. Bai Shan stretched out his hand to lead Zhou Man, turned around and went home, and said to her, "A few villagers have been injured, and now everyone is in the medical office. Fortunately, Dr. Tian and the others have good medical skills. Do you want to take a look after dinner?" "Okay." Zhou Man was a little worried about the Yanchang incident, but he was not worried about them and the Yanchang, but Yang Heshu, who was far away in the south of the Yangtze River. "We are so far apart that even we were assassinated. Isn't it more dangerous for Brother Yang to be in Jiangnan?" The worried Yang Heshu was working overtime in his study. At this time, it was already dark outside, and even the curfew had arrived, and the excitement had stopped everywhere. He heard the sound of fighting in the courtyard and on the roof, and frowned slightly. After a while, someone came in and said, "Sir, it's the dead man, all of them are dead." He asked, "Do you still send it to the yamen?" Yang Heshu shook his head, "You don't have to send people away if you throw them out of the hospital wall. See you tomorrow, good night." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3173. With a few bangs, several corpses in night clothes were thrown outside the courtyard wall, and the guards of the Yang residence returned to their lives without looking back. The next day, the news of several corpses appearing in the alleys of Yangzhou Mansion spread all over Yangzhou, and Thursday Lang sat in the small restaurant and listened with great interest while waiting for the food to come. He turned his head and said to Uncle Shi, "Yangzhou looks very prosperous, but it is more chaotic than our Lujiang County. The murdered corpses can even be thrown on the street, tisk tisk tisk." Uncle Shi hesitated, "Is there a lot of people and disputes?" "There aren't as many people in the capital." Shu Youlang raised his hand and poured himself a cup of tea, and poured it for them as well, shaking his head. "I have been in the capital for so many years, and although I have heard of many cases of dead people, I have never heard of it. Not a single one left a body on the street." The person sitting on the table next to him was dissatisfied. He turned his head and said, "Brother Tai, those who died were not ordinary people, but assassins. Our Yangzhou city is not usually so chaotic, and ordinary people are still very safe." Thursday Lang became interested in an instant, picked up a plate of dim sum on the table, picked up the teapot and sat over, and asked him curiously, "Brother, talk about it. I came from the capital, just passing by. This is my second time in Yangzhou. So I'm not familiar with Yangzhou. Who was assassinated?" The man had already heard that Shai Zilang's accent was not here, and when he heard that he was from the capital, he sighed. Who else could it be? The bodies were all thrown in the lanes of Changle Street, naturally the Huainan Road supervisor's office. Thrown out. Thursday Lang frowned. Huainan Dao Supervision Office? Why does it sound so familiar to me? Zhou Hulang thought hard, and it took him a long time to remember. He narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a low voice, "Isn't the supervisor's surname Yang?" "Yeah, it's Inspector Yang." Thursday Lang sat closer and whispered, "Isn't that very handsome?" The other party looked at him in surprise and nodded. "Yes, in fact, there are quite a few good-looking people in Jiangnan, but after Mr. Yang came, he is indeed the most handsome." "Why, have you seen it?" He didn't dare to say the word knowing, who would come to eat in this small restaurant to know someone like a fairy. Zhou Hulang slapped his thigh and said, "I've seen him. He is also the most handsome adult in the capital. He is very good looking and very talented." He frowned slightly. "No, why did the assassin assassinate Lord Yang? He is a good man." "Man Bao's good friend, can you be a good person?" The other party looked left and right, and also came up to him, touching his head with Shiro Lang and whispering, "Why, of course, it's for the salt." He lowered his voice and said, "Many people came to Yangzhou to buy salt in the spring this year. Originally, the salt from Chuzhou and Hangzhou had to be sent to Yangzhou and bought together, but this year, for some reason, those people are waiting in Yangzhou. No salt for 2 months." Zhou Hulang didn't know that it was Bai Shan and Zhou Man who robbed other people's business, and he lowered his voice with the same interest and asked, "Then what? Isn't Jiangnan rich in salt? Why isn't there?" "Yeah, we are also wondering, how come there are not even a single salt in so many salt fields," the other party whispered. "Most of them were greedy. Master Yang is a supervisor, but it's not in his hands. Here, Sai, I heard from a distant cousin in my brother-in-law's cousin's house that Mr. Yang had been running around a lot in order to get the salt out of the salt field, but they just couldn't control it. Now those who buy salt are leaving. Now, the court wants to ask the guilt, but they pushed Lord Yang out instead." He lowered his voice and said, "It was said that Lord Yang gave orders indiscriminately, so the salt was boiled, so there is no salt." "Fart," Shu Yulang said indignantly, "Master Yang is not that kind of person. He always listens to people's opinions. When he sees people farming, if others don't know a single character, he will listen to the old farmers and plant the seeds as soon as they are said. See, how could he order something like cooking salt indiscriminately? Isn't it? Hey, that's not right. How did you know?" Thursday Lang said proudly, "Of course I know. Mr. Yang used to be the magistrate of our county." Thursday Lang sat in the small restaurant for more than an hour, not only settled the people's bills, but also ordered another table of dishes and a pot of wine, and asked Uncle Shangshi to brag with them. A lunch was eaten in the evening, and even dinner was eaten together. In the end, Chu Hulang left with a belly full of gossip. He couldn't digest it a little, so he pulled Uncle Shi and asked, "So, Master Yang is very dangerous here in Yangzhou. Do you think we should go and see Master Yang?" Although Uncle Shi has more knowledge, he is not familiar with Yang Heshu. He pondered for a while and asked, "Did you plan to visit earlier?" "I don't plan," said Thursday Lang. "Manbao didn't ask me to deliver anything. What am I going to do?" "Then don't go, it's going to cause trouble for people to go now." However, Thursday Lang frowned, and shook his head after a moment. "No, we will go back by boat in 2 days. I don't know what to do. Now that I know, why should I go take a look and ask, in case Yang, what should I do if something happened to the adult?" Yang Heshu and Manbao Baishan have a very good relationship. Whenever there is anything in the family, Yang Heshu comes to the door, and there is a New Year's ceremony every year. Thursday Lang couldn't sleep, so he immediately put on the shoes he just took off, turned around and went to the box. "What about the box of pens we brought from Hangzhou? I'll share 2 of them, and I'll send them to Master Yang tomorrow. By the way, is there anything I need or help? Even sending a letter to Manbao Baishan would do." He remembered what Manbao had said, that she and Master Tang and Master Yang often helped each other in officialdom. "Uncle Shi, just give me 2 pens." Oops, courtesy is light and affectionate. Shiro felt that there was no need to pay attention to the gift. He was just looking for an excuse to come to the door and ask if he needed help. "Is this expensive one good? He just bought it for Manbao and Baishan." "Yes, he has been distressed for a long time." "Would you like to go?" Seeing that Uncle Shi was unwilling, Thursday Lang said, "Go, go, anyway, we are acquaintances. It is a rare fate that we can meet in a foreign land." Uncle Shi was silent for a while, then shook his head. On Thursday, Lang slammed it again. Seeing that he should not be forced, he warned, "Then you will order the goods again tomorrow, and go shopping in Yangzhou City to see if there is anything else you need to buy. I will take Sanzu and the others." Uncle Shi responded. His mood fluctuated for a while. When Yang Heshu was the magistrate of Lujiang County, the Shi family was still one of the richest people in Lujiang County. Every year during the New Year, Dragon Boat Festival and Mid-Autumn Festival, Uncle Shi was Yang Heshu's guest. When Yang Heshu left Lujiang County, although the Shi family was a lot poorer, the ancestry is still there. Goodbye now, he. Seeing the old man when he was down, put a lot of pressure on him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3174. There was no one on the avenue in front of the Overwatch mansion. Maybe it was because of the murder case. Even the nearby alleys were extremely quiet. Look at the gate of the Overwatch office. Thursel Lang stood in front of the door with a gift box and a gift bag, looked, and stared at the policeman on the steps for a while. As soon as the other party raised his eyebrows, his face sank, and Thursday Lang immediately showed a smile and went up with the gift. Sir, we are here to meet Master Yang, by the way, this is our post. Thursday Lang took Zhou Man's official post directly. The other party stretched out his hand to take it. The original casual look became more serious after opening it. He lifted his eyelids to look at Thursday Lang. You and this Lord Zhou. Brothers and sisters, said Thursday Lang proudly, this is my sister, dear. The officer's attitude became better, and he said, you and our adults know each other? Did you agree to visit in advance? What is the purpose of this visit? What kind of business is there? Thursday Lang smiled and said, I just passed by Yangzhou, so I came to see Mr. Yang. He used to be the magistrate of our Lujiang County, and he was an official in the same dynasty as my little sister, so I had a good relationship. Come and see. After thinking about it, the clerk asked him to wait here for a while, and he went in with the post to find Lord Yang. Yang Heshu basically did not go out at this time, and only handled government affairs in the Yamen. After receiving the post, he was stunned for a while and said, please come in. The official responded respectfully and went out to invite Shiro and the others to come in. In addition to the 2 pens, Thursday Lang also carried a few packets of snacks, all of which were bought now. Yang Heshu smiled when he saw what he brought and asked, when did you come to Yangzhou? Thursday Lang hurriedly said, I arrived more than a month ago, but I didn't stay in Yangzhou for a long time. We went to Suzhou and Hangzhou to get some goods. Thursday Lang took a closer look at Yang Heshu's face and felt that his face was not bad, so he asked directly, Master Yang, I'm going back to Qingzhou later, do you have a message for Manbao and the others? He said worriedly, I heard from people outside that you were assassinated 2 days ago. Yang Heshu was stunned for a moment and then smiled, it's not a big deal. There are many false rumors outside, so you don't need to listen to them. He paused and said, just bring me a message, ask them how they are, and say everything is fine here. Thursday Suro finally left empty-handed. Wan Tian brought the tea up and couldn't help but say, Lord Lang, why don't you give the things to Lord Thursday? Even writing a letter is fine. Yang Heshu shook his head and said, now even a mosquito can't escape the attention of those people when I come in here, let alone Shiro, it's best not to bring anything to him. He said, is Tang He coming soon? Thursday Lang smiled all the way back, and his face sank as soon as he entered the room of the inn. Uncle Shi was in the same room with him, stunned for a moment, and asked, what's wrong? Thursday Lang raised his brows, smiled and said, it's all right, just wondering if we can go back a day earlier. We don't have much to do now, and if we stay here for one more day, we will pay an extra day's rent. Uncle Shi, didn't you say you want to take a good look around Yangzhou City? And the boat is booked, even if we want to leave early, it's impossible for them to leave early. He frowned and asked, did something happen to Master Yang? That's not true, said Thursday Lang. I just made a calculation on the way back. With so many of us here to eat and live, we have to spend nearly £1 of money a day, which makes me feel a little distressed. Uncle Stone. Since he couldn't leave early, Thursday Lang didn't mention it anymore. The next day, he still took people out to visit Yangzhou City and bought some popular Yangzhou accessories and ready-to-wear as gifts. After shopping for a day, they went back early in the evening to rest, and in the early morning of the next day, they had to get up and escort the goods to the wharf. By the time all the merchants' goods were loaded on the ship, it was already bright, and Thursday Lang took people on board and officially set off. When Wednesday Zhu returned from checking the goods, he couldn't help but pull Thursday Lang and whispered, "I always feel that our things have been turned over, but after careful inspection, there is nothing missing, but the collection is not neat. Do you think this ship is not? Is there a thief?" "Can't you?" Before Thursday Lang could speak, another person had already said, "A thief must have lost something." "I haven't lost it now." "Was it bumpy when we lifted it up?" "A box of silk and satin, wrapped in oiled paper and stuffed in the box. Can bumps knock the fabric out of order?" Zhu said, "Although this is my first time in business, we took Shujin all the way from home before. Bumpy to the capital, and from the capital to Qingzhou, moved up and down several times, but what kind of Shujin is put in, and what it is like when you take it out, it's strict." Wednesday Zhu insisted, "It's definitely not bumped out, or someone is turning over our things." After thinking about it, Thursday Lang said, "It's all right, as long as you don't lose anything, we'll just pay more attention in the future." He leaned on the shoulders of Wednesday Post and pulled the man into the cabin. "Look at our luggage." Wednesday Zhu was careful, and Thursday Lang was not careless. The two of them didn't pay attention before, but now they opened their carry-on luggage and found traces of rummaging. Wednesday Zhu's eyes widened and he almost jumped up, only to stop shouting when Shiro covered his mouth. Wednesday Zhu ripped off his hand and said in a low voice, "Fourth uncle, what are you doing? This is a pirate ship. Let's find a reason to go back and disembark while the ship is just sailing." "Shut up." Thursday Lang first glanced outside before whispering, "Most of the thieves have already left." "How do you know?" Sweat oozes from the back of Chuolang's back, and he said, "We didn't lose anything. This thief is obviously looking for something else, not for money. Since he can't find it here, he won't come again." "What kind of thief is this? What are you looking for?" "How do I, a commoner, know?" That being said, Thursday Lang was still restless all the way, until he saw the Longqi pier, and his heart dropped slightly. As soon as the boat docked, he didn't care about his valuable things on the boat, and handed them all to Uncle Shi and Jojo to count them. As soon as he saw Fang Xiancheng, he was as excited as he saw his parents, and immediately stepped forward to hold his hand. "Fang Xiancheng, where is my brother-in-law? Isn't he here?" Fang Xiancheng was taken aback, and when he recognized Shai Zilang, he quickly said, "Thursday Lord came by accident. The day before yesterday, the adults just came to inspect and left, and they should be in the county town at the moment." Fang Xiancheng thoughtfully asked, "Did you encounter any trouble on Thursday?" Thursday Lang fooled him, "No, I haven't seen him for a long time, and I miss him. Since he's not here, I'll just go back to the county town to find him." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3175. Thursday Lang went back to look for Uncle Shi, and said to them, "We have a shop here, and we will send everything to the warehouse behind the shop. The shop has not yet opened. You can open the door and put the things out, and the price will be the same as before. Once it's decided, we'll take action when it's suitable, and we'll take it back to the capital if it's not suitable. If I have something to do, I will go back to Bihai County first. You guys will live in the small yard next to the courtyard on the mountain, just like the last time you lived." Thursday Lang gave Jozu a sum of money and told him, "Everyone ran all the way, take a good rest these 2 days, eat a good meal, this is the money for the meal, you take it, Go back and record the account and give it to me. Although Wednesday Zhu is not very good at writing, he can read. After all, his nephew and son are studying in the school, and he also has his own way of keeping accounts, so he nodded in response. Shi Zilang was going to find Lu Gui, and Lu Gui heard that Shi Rulang was back, and he had already come over in advance. Fourth uncle, I have let the kitchen boil water to cook. Thursday Lang interrupted him and asked, are there any horses? I'll go back to the county seat to see Manbeo first. Lu Gui was stunned for a moment and then nodded, yes, but the fourth uncle wants to go alone? I'm afraid it's not very safe, otherwise I'll take the two guys in the store with me. They often go back and forth between Bihai County and Longqi. Cooked. Shiro nodded directly, raised his feet and left. Let's go, where are the people and horses? Seeing that Thursday Lang was leaving empty-handed, Lu Gui didn't even bring a gift, so he immediately arranged a guide to the pier. You go and lead the way for Uncle Shi and the others, and lead them to walk around Longqi in the past 2 days, and listen to them. Just order. After talking, he personally brought a car over, and said to Thursday Lang, fourth uncle, I'll drive for you, my little one, we only have a horse here, it's used to pulling carts, and maybe it's not used to running alone. On Thursday, Lang should go. The three of them set off immediately, and continued after a short break in the middle. They arrived at the yamen before sunset. When Thursday Lang got out of the car, his body was swaying. He had been on the boat for so many days, and he didn't realize it at first, but now he has been in the car for a long time and then stepped on the ground. He felt that the house was shaking. Lu Gui quickly supported him, fourth uncle, are you all right? Thursday Lang shook his hand, it's all right, let's go and knock on the door. Zhou Man and the others were about to take Bai Jingxing and Bai Ruyu out for a walk, when they saw Lu Gui raising his hand to knock on the door as soon as they opened the door. But Zhou Man didn't look at him, but first saw Shiro, who was being supported behind him, fourth brother. Bai Shan was also taken aback, fourth brother, are you ill? Why don't you read me a little better? I'm not sick, it's just that the car is too shaken. I'm a little disgusted at the moment, and you guys are shaking a little bit. Don't shake first, stand up straight. Zhou Man and Bai Shan subconsciously glanced at themselves first, then at each other, and determined that they were all right. They immediately put Bai Jingxing behind Yin or his arms, stepped forward to support him. Go, let's go back to the house, fourth brother, let me feel your pulse first. Bai Erlang hugged his family Bai Ruyu and immediately moved away. When the two fat boys saw Bai Shan and Zhou Man turn back, they were unhappy. They immediately stretched out their arms to hug Bai Erlang and Yin Or's necks, and pointed a finger at the door. He turned upside down, making a gesture of not going back if he died. Zhou Man waved, go, take them to play today, come back early. The two children understood, no longer screaming, but still leaning towards the door forcefully. Bai Erlang was able to hug Bai Ruyu, but Yin Wei was a little reluctant. Bai Jingxing looked at Longevity, then at Mei, and resolutely rushed into Mei's embrace. Knowing that she could go out to play, she stopped making a fuss about asking for her parents, and jumped excitedly in Mei's arms, giggling and leaning towards the door. Mei can only take her out. Bai Erlang and Shi Zulang said hello and hurriedly hugged Bai Ruyu to chase after Bai Jingxing. The two children had to go together to be happy. Zhou Man and Bai Shan helped Su Lang back to the room, and felt his pulse first. There was nothing wrong with him. Worry too much. Zhou Man thought it was amazing, fourth brother, what are you worried about? Bai Shan, the road is unstable, and there are robbers. But don't you go by sea? Are there pirates at sea? Thursday Lang didn't think there was anything wrong with him. I just sat on the boat for a long time, just go back and sleep. He glanced outside, and when he saw that there was no talent, he whispered, I just want to tell you quickly that something has happened to Mr. Yang. Bai Shan and Zhou Man's expressions changed. Have you seen Brother Yang? I see. Thursday Lang told them about their meeting and the rumors in Yangzhou. He touched his head and said, when Master Yang was in Ziyazhu, every time I went back to Beijing, he would, if you want me to send something back to my relatives and friends, even if there is nothing, there are a lot of letters. But this time I didn't say anything, I didn't even have a letter, just an ordinary message, said Thursday. I felt bad at the time. Later, after we got on the ship and counted the goods, we found that our goods had been overturned. Yes, even the luggage was quietly turned over. Thursday Lang has been in business all the year round, and he has long developed the habit of being cautious and careful in all kinds of hardships. Even if he leaves the cabin, he will let others pay attention to their luggage and goods. Especially the cabin they live in, at least every time they are guarded. But even in this way, people can find opportunities to rummage, which shows how powerful the other party is. Thursday Lang was not stupid, he had already vaguely guessed what they were looking for. Are they afraid that Mr. Yang will take things out through my hands? Bai Shan nodded, feeling shocked and fortunate. He reached out and patted his shoulder and said, just come back safely. When you get to Qingzhou, they won't be staring at you anymore. Fortunately, the other party still has scruples, and he didn't kill him just because of a little doubt. At the same time, he was even more worried about Yang Hesha's situation. Brother Tang should have arrived in Yangzhou early, right? Zhou Man calculated the time and said, it should be here. Bai Shan exhaled, the second batch of salt is going to C2. Thura, what salt? By the way, salt, Shu Yulang stared, I remember that Li Wei came here to manage the salt field for you. There is no salt in the salt field in Jiangnan. You have salt in Bihai County. Have you made a lot of money? This year, there is so much less salt, outside isn't the price of salt going to skyrocket? Bai Shan was about to explain, but Thursday Lang had already held Bai Shan and said, is salt expensive here? How much can one person buy per household at most? I plan to buy more and send it back. There are so many people in the family who need salt, and there is another one. The restaurant consumes a lot. Bai Shan. Zhou Man hurriedly cut off his words and said, fourth brother, there is no shortage of salt outside. Didn't you say that Jiangnan didn't sell a grain of salt? How could there be no shortage of salt? Zhou Mandao, Wei Qingzhou made up all the gaps. See you tomorrow, good night. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3176. Thursday Lang couldn't believe that with so many salt fields in the south of the Yangtze River, a single salt field in Bihai County could fill the gap. Seeing his shocked and suspicious expression, Bai Shan explained, not only are Bihai County, but also Shaoguan County, Leizhou, and Dengzhou, and several seaside counties are now drying salt. Bai Shan used the method of drying salt to exchange for many things, such as ships in Leizhou, business resources in Dengzhou, population in Kangzhou and so on. He replaced everything that Bihai County lacked, not to mention that in order to build the Longqi Wharf, he also needed a lot of wood, most of which was bought by him, and the other half was sent by the governor of Kangzhou. There's a lot of good wood over there. Thursday Lang was taken aback for a moment, then he covered his chest and exclaimed, how much does this cost? The wharf and the salt field, the two richest are in Bihai County. Zhou Mandao, that's also the money of the imperial court. Even His Majesty and the Crown Prince can't move it, but this year's money should be enough to build a wharf. Next year, our Bihai County will be very rich, right? Just thinking about it makes her very happy. Bai Shan turned his head to look at her, I haven't had time to tell you yet. The imperial court has decided to sell salt and iron monopoly. In the future, the imperial court will no longer levy salt tax, and all official salt will be sold by the county and county government offices in cooperation with the Salt Transportation Department. He said, although the price varies from place to place due to different transportation costs, it will not vary greatly. All salt can be distributed to grocery stores after arriving at the place. The price is jointly negotiated by the Salt Transportation Department and the county government, and the price cannot be higher than 5% of the cost. Joe Man, then it will be much cheaper for us to eat salt. Did Thursday Lang understand, and asked, how much is that? Bai Shandao, if all the costs of a bucket of salt from production to transportation are included, and it is 50 cents a bucket when it arrives at the place, then the price cannot be higher than 52 cents and a half. Thursday Lang was dumbfounded. Isn't the price of salt now 110 cents a bucket? Bai Shan smiled slightly and said, it will come down. Bai Shan is right, the price will indeed come down. Now that the Salt Transport Division has not taken over the Salt Administration, it is still in charge of the provincial governors and county offices. Perhaps it was because he was afraid that the accident of the previous quarter would reappear, and it was clear that the good people would send salt out for 2 months. The renovated and enlarged post station welcomed a wave of guests, and the postmaster warmly welcomed them. Although their accommodation is free, the county government pays. Bai Shan also welcomes them. Although they eat and live in the inn for free, the darts and workers they bring the escort salt are not free, and whoever comes on a business trip, the friendly toller will always stay in the inn to eat and live. Their arrival made Bihai County look more prosperous. Bai Shan directly took them to visit the weaving workshops in the county. Now the female workers are weaving and tailoring, including embroidery, and the clothes and fabrics they make are very good. The officials who bought the shopping followed Bai Shan with a bewildered look, and were even taken to the farm to see the pigs, chickens, and ducks they raised, the fruits and vegetables they planted, as well as the rice and beans. Who doesn't have these things yet? The most important thing is that they came to buy salt, not real merchants. Bai Shan said with a smile, the pigs here are all castrated, not only tastes better, but also grows faster. Have you seen this one? This is the first batch of castrated pigs, and it has only been raised for less than 7 years. Months, you can start killing now, so I will let someone kill one, and I will treat you to a whole pig feast in the evening. Officials, I don't want to eat. They all prefer to eat mutton and chicken, and even if it's bad, they eat fish, and basically they rarely eat pork. But Bai Shan has already taken them to see the chickens in the orchard. We also have a lot of chickens. Recently, our veterinarian in Bihai County found that roosters can also be castrated, and the meat that grows after castration is not to mention the taste of the meat. Also better. He observed their expressions and immediately turned around, but we also have a lot of hens, and many of them have already started laying eggs, so the eggs are produced every day, and they are very fresh. After saying this, Bai Shan finally stated his purpose. If your prefecture or county needs to purchase these things in the future, you can consider our Bihai County. Whether it's pork, chicken, melons, fruits, and vegetables, ours here is better than the ones outside. Crowd, they are just officials who buy salt, not agricultural and sideline products. But Bai Shan is the county magistrate. Not only is the official bigger than them, but they also need to rely on Bai Shan to get the official salt, so they didn't show it, but just smiled and said that it must be certain. Bai Shan didn't care whether they were sincere or fake, and with a smile on his face, he asked the long-term workers in Zhuangzi to catch a pig, kill it and send it to the inn, and then take them back to the county town. Bring your own manpower and money with you. He smiled and said, now Bihai County has limited manpower, and it is temporarily impossible to transport official salt to the county for trading, so you still need to go to the salt field to trade. Everyone's eyes were bright, and they didn't expect to be able to get the right word the next day. They didn't mind going a long way to the salt field, but they were worried that they wouldn't be able to buy salt. The buyers were a little more enthusiastic, and they all said that this is not a problem, they are willing to go no matter how far, You are not enough, they have it. Early the next morning, Bai Shan personally took them to the Voie. Everyone is still looking grey now. Zhou Liwei has opened up all the places where the salt field can be opened. At this time, it can no longer be opened, but the daily salt production is huge. During this period of time, countless long-term workers were transferred here from various villages. Because of the large number of workers, rows of houses were built in the open space around Xiajiawa, and there was also a market. People who didn't know come here, they must think that it's a big town, not just a small village. Zhou Liwei is now the chief steward here. There are too many things to do. Basically, there is no way to go to the fields to dry and shovel salt, but he is not much white. After half a summer of poisonous sun, he looks even darker now. He trotted to meet Bai Shan, and the many people behind him ran forward and said, "Sir, the salt is in the warehouse, shall we go to the warehouse?" Bai Shan nodded and led everyone to buy salt. The buyers thought they would take a night's rest and discuss the business the next day, but they didn't expect that the steward of the salt works would be so resolute. They quickly followed and walked past some salt fields. They only felt that the light reflected by the sunlight on the salt fields made their eyes astringent, and the group walked to the warehouse in a daze. Zhou Liwei asked people to open the warehouse and carry the salt out in bags. Come on, take out the official lead for comparison. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3177. You can buy as much salt as you want. Officials who come to buy it will bring guanyin, also known as salt. It is the amount of salt that needs to be purchased as approved by the governor's office. Taking this official guide to the salt producing area can be exchanged for official salt. The best result is sufficient quantity, and the bad result is insufficient quantity. Insufficient quantity will also be indicated on the official guide, and how much is sold will be written, so as to prevent someone from embezzling official salt and using it as private salt. Of course, this does not completely eliminate illicit salt, it just blocks a path. Zhou Liwei has been learning these things for a while, but this is the first time he has come into contact with this kind of government affairs, and he is still a little nervous, and his palms are sweating. He glanced at Bai Shan. Bai Shan smiled at him, nodded, and stood by with his arms folded and waited. When the other officials saw this, they respected Zhou Liwei, the salt farm manager, and hurriedly took out the officials. Zhou Liwei glanced at it, and then said to Chang Gong behind him, "Bring the scale." Bags of official salt were carried out, weighed and put aside. The official who bought it came forward, touched the bag of salt, and asked, "Can you take it apart and have a look?" Zhou Liwei stepped forward and opened the bag to show him. The other buyers also gathered around immediately. Everyone twisted a little salt and tasted it in their mouths. It was indeed the same as the salt given last season, and everyone nodded in satisfaction. They checked it carefully, and they also randomly selected a bag of salt and released most of it and checked it. After confirming that the quality is the same, they returned it with satisfaction. After weighing enough salt, Zhou Liwei wrote on the official guide that he had purchased enough salt, then stamped the seal of the salt field, and looked at the purchasing officials. "Where's the money?" The official was stunned for a moment, and then hurriedly had the car come over and the money was taken down. The two sides settled down, so Zhou Liwei told the official to collect the money, and the other party had the salt loaded in the car pulled aside. But he didn't leave, and continued to watch other people buying and selling salt. Bags of salt were carried out, and the salt in one warehouse was sold out. Zhou Liwei turned around and took them to the warehouse next door. Everyone's eyes flickered. Bihai County is really capable, and there is really so much salt to replace the salt field in Jiangnan? This matter has little impact on them. For the salt officials who buy it, as long as there is official salt for them to buy, it will be fine. Where to buy it or not? To be honest, they were still a little bit overjoyed when they saw that the salt field in Jiangnan was robbed of business. But in fact Bihai County's salt is not enough to supply so many people. As soon as they left, Zhou Liwei said, "Little uncle, there are still 68 bags of salt in the warehouse, and it's not enough for me to buy a few more." He said, "The time is too short. Although the production of salt is quite high now, there are many places to buy salt." Bai Shan nodded, "I know, don't worry, I have a solution there." His solution was to write a letter to the governor of Leizhou. From time to time, an official from Bihai County came to buy official salt. He sometimes asked them to take them to the salt field, and sometimes introduced them to officials from Leizhou. After introducing them to each other, they didn't care. Officials who bought official salt were fooled to go to Leizhou, where they not only bought official salt, but also transported official salt through the Leizhou wharf. Bai Shan smiled slightly after hearing this, and handed the envelope to the yamen. "Send it to the post station, this is a letter to Dengzhou, this is sent to the capital, send it." "Yes." Bai Shan stretched his waist and turned his neck to go home through the small door. After walking for a while, he saw Shiro standing under the porch, staring at a flower in a trance. Bai Shan stepped forward. "Fourth brother, what are you looking at?" "Look at the flowers," said Thursday Lang blankly, "I've been back for 2 days, how do you think things still sway when I look at them?" Bai Shan hesitated for a moment and then said, "The after effects of sitting on a boat for too long." Thursday Lang shook his head, "No, I was also on a boat when I went. Although I felt a little shaky when I got off the boat, it was fine after a night's sleep. This time it was especially serious. Look, this flower is growing well, it is moved again." "Bai Shan, this is blown by the wind." "Oh," Thursday Suro looked away, turned to look at the pillars in the corridor, and rubbed his forehead. Bai Shan asked with concern, "How is it, did you shake?" "Not now, but sometimes when I turn around suddenly or turn my head, it will shake. The most important thing is that I often have nightmares. When I'm half awake, I feel that the bed is shaking, just like being on a boat," sighed Thursday. "Bai Shan, do you think I'm sick?" Bai Shan dragged him away. "Just ask Man Bao if he is sick." "No, listen to me," Shu Yulang held him, "isn't there a sentence in what you often say, that each has his own expertise in knowledge and craftsmanship? Industry specializing in surgery." "That's right, that's it." Shu Yulang exhaled and said, "I think Man Bao may not be very good at this. After all, she has never been on a boat." Bai Shan looked at the other party seriously, and after confirming that he was serious, he nodded and said, "You're right, then I'll help you go back to rest first, and I'll ask someone to invite a doctor later." Thursday Lang supported his hand and walked. "It's not good, will my sister-in-law be angry when she finds out?" Bai Shanran smiled and said, "No, my sister-in-law is busy taking my sister now. I will let the doctor come quietly and leave quietly, so I won't know." Thururo let out a sigh of relief. "Okay, just come quietly." After sending the person back to the room, Bai Shan picked up his robe and trotted to find Zhou Man in the medical office. Zhou Man was compiling medical books, and because he was writing up, he didn't go home. Hearing the movement, he raised his head and glanced, and when he saw it was Bai Shan, he lowered his head and wrote, "Why are you here? Come and invite the doctor." Zhou Man didn't lift his head. "Who do you invite?" "Fourth brother." Zhou Man stopped writing and thought about it, and asked, "What's wrong?" "Bai Shan, seasick." He was also a little unsure, and said with a smile, "He said that everything he sees is shaking now, and he always has nightmares at night. He feels that he is still on the boat. He wants to invite other doctors to take a look." Zhou Man pondered for a while, and finally put down his pen. he can't trust my medical skills. Bai Shanren smiled and said, he said that this is because you specialize in surgery, and you may not be good at treating seasickness. Zhou Man was stunned for a moment, his eyes slightly brightened. Yeah, it's really possible, then who should I invite? Dr. Tian and Dr. Xiao have both returned to the yacht. Dr. Wei is still there, you can ask Dr. Wei to take a look. Zhou Man touched his chin and thought, actually, the most important thing about fourth brother is not seasickness. He is worried. He can't be at peace until now, so it's too late. I have already prescribed an Ningtang for him. Bai Shan sighed and became more serious. I don't blame the fourth brother for being afraid. I feel scared now when I think about it. Today, Shuexiang Tang's letter has arrived, and he has already arrived in Jiangnan. Since Mr. Wei's letter to the new salt policy, Yang Shue's brother Tang has been assassinated all the time. Some were assassinated on the road, and some were assassinated in the house. Tang Shuexiang and the others went all the way to Jiangnan, and they encountered 2 assassinations after entering Jiangnan. He sighed and said, those people are already crazy, and it's thanks to the fourth brother who came out from Shuexian Yang empty-handed. As long as he brings something with him, even if they can't find something that is problematic, I'm afraid they'll still think about it. The wrong kill is not to be missed. Just thinking about it makes him feel scared, not to mention Shiro. Zhou Man frowned, disgusted. When will the situation in Jiangnan settle down? Come on, Bai Shan grabbed her hand and said, the new salt policy is going to be implemented. They've been making so much noise recently, it's impossible not to leave any traces, let alone Brother Tang who will host it. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3178. Zhou Man couldn't write anymore, so he simply collected the information on the case, put it in the basket, and said, go home and write. She called Zibing, go and invite Dr. Wei to see the doctor. Western Cake, whose house to go to? Our family, Zhou Man said, show my fourth brother, who is frightened and worried, and seasick. Let Dr. Wei comfort the patient more. Zhou Man took the medical book and asked Bai Shan in a low voice, I'll follow, will fourth brother be nervous, or should I think I don't know about it? Bai Shan, fourth brother is not stupid. 2 good doctors in the county are apprentices in your medical office. How can they hide from him? Zhou Menyu thought about it too. Okay, but in order not to make him nervous, I'll wait outside for a while. Facts have proved that Thursday Lang is really stupid. He can't remember this at all, so Bai Shan brought Dr. Wei in to see him, and he asked quietly, Man Bao doesn't know about my secret invitation to the doctor, right? Dr. Wei, who was about to sit down for a consultation, froze. Bai Shan also paused, and then said with a calm expression, I don't know, I asked someone to go outside to invite them. Thursday Lang didn't even recognize that Dr. Wei was an apprentice in the medical department, so he leaned on the bed to look at him. Doctor, I think you look familiar, you seem to have seen it somewhere. Dr. Wei said with an expressionless face, at Lord Zhou's place. Bai Shan. Shiro nodded, really, I've seen many doctors at Manbao's. Which pharmacy are you from? Wuji. I haven't heard of it, but it doesn't prevent Chai Zulang from complimenting him. I've heard of it, Dr. Wei is really a master of danking. Bai Shan Zheng was serving tea and drinking water, and almost spit out a mouthful of tea. He swallowed it hard, he couldn't help coughing a few times, the end of his eyes were red, and tears almost fell. Fourth brother, are you still dizzy? Dizzy, Shiro covered his head and said, actually, it's not very dizzy, it's just that I don't sleep well, I always have nightmares without saying anything, and I'll be woken up by a startle. Once I wake up, it's hard to fall asleep, as if I've been on a boat all the time. Sometimes I can't wake up even if I want to wake up, it's uncomfortable. As soon as Dr. Wei heard the symptoms, he said, Isn't this seasickness? Or it's not just seasickness. Dr. Wei felt his pulse and felt that he was thinking too much to do this, so he let him relax, and he said, I'll give you a soothing soup. Dr. Wei felt that he was frightened when he went to sea for the first time. After all, the sea was dangerous. Dr. Wei went down to prescribe the prescription, and by the way, he looked at the prescription that Zhou Man had prescribed for him before. Dr. Wei went to Zhou Man depressedly, Master Zhou, the recipe you gave to Lord Thursday is already the best, I really can't think of a better recipe. Let him figure it out for himself. Zhou Man nodded worriedly, thought hard, and finally ran back to the room to rummage. Mei hurriedly followed and asked, Miss, what are you looking for? Zhou Man thought hard and said, I remember that when I was in the capital, I made incense for Mr. Wei, but it was a little bad at the time. Because the materials were precious, I didn't want to throw them away, so I packed them in incense bags and boxes. Did you bring it? After thinking about it in May, he moved a stool over, stepped on a box on the top of the cabinet, and opened it. There was everything inside, even the bamboo grasshopper that Zhou Man played with when he was a child. May found a small box, opened it and glanced at it before handing it to Zhou Man. Miss, is this right? Zhou Man took it, opened it, took out a small sachet, and nodded happily after smelling it. This is it. Zhou Man took the incense bag to look for Shirulang, fourth brother, this is the soothing incense. I used to make it for Lord Wei, and it's a little broken. You should burn it in the incense burner before going to bed at night. Shiro was lying on the bed as if he were a patient, and said in a daze, it can be used even if it's bad. It's just broken, not very shaped, but the effect is still the same. Zhou Man opened the sachet and showed it to him. I originally wanted to keep my own, but Bai Shan and I both slept well, and we couldn't use it. We were confused and put it in the box. Fortunately, we brought it with us when we came to Bihai County. Go it up, or it will be wasted. Chu Yulang became curious, is this incense really useful? Try it, soothe the gods. Thursday night put it in the incense burner. In order to make the effect a little better, he also put a stool beside the bed and moved the incense burner to the stool. Smelling the faint fragrance, I don't know if it was the soothing incense that had an effect, or whether the Ning Tang that I had just drank for a while had an effect. Shai Zulang's eyelids were heavy, and he slowly fell asleep. In the middle of the night, in the dead of night, when Shiro's legs kicked, he woke up with a start. Thursday Lang opened his eyes to look at the tent, rubbed the sweat on his forehead, and couldn't sleep for a long time, so he could only pull the tent and get out of bed. Thursday Lang glanced at the sky outside, couldn't help sighing, and opened the door to go out. It's weird, why can't he sleep? On Thursday, Lang was puzzled. Man Bao said that he was too worried, and Dr. Wei also said that he was thinking too much. But when he came back, he felt relieved and was not afraid. How could he not be able to sleep? On Thursday, Lang felt that they were all wrong, and he was clearly seasick. Chu Yulang turned around in the yard and had a headache. Prescribe a Ning soup for him. Just give him the medicine for seasickness. Unfortunately, Man Bao has eaten all the medicines he gave him to prevent seasickness last time, otherwise. Fourth brother, what are you doing? Thursday Lang fell to the ground with a snap, shaking his lips to see Zhou Man who suddenly appeared not far away, wearing a white lingerie. I think I'm frightened now, sister-in-law, call sister-in-law quickly. Call my soul back. Zhou Man. One person passed behind her and quickly stepped forward to help Shiro Lang up. Shiro Lang realized that there was not only Zhou Man standing there, but Bai Shan as well, and he asked him, shaking his lips, why don't you sleep at night? What? Bai Shan helped the person up and was speechless for a while. Fourth brother, should we ask you this? Why don't you sleep in the yard at night? Zhou Mandao, we were woken up by the sound of you walking back and forth. She stared and said, if it weren't for the guards and guards on duty around the house, we would have almost thought that the assassin had touched our yard. Thura. Joe Man reached out and grabbed his hand and pressed a few acupoints on him. The pain was so painful that he wanted to pull out his hand, but Joe Man grabbed him. Are you still afraid? Thursday Lang clenched his neck and said, am I afraid? I stumbled on my left foot and fell with my right foot. Yes, yes, you're not afraid. Joe Man sat on the railing with him and asked while pressing the acupoints on his hand, can't you fall asleep again? On Thursday, Lang nodded, I slept well in the first half of the night, but I was woken up in the second half of the night. Joe Man was very curious, what did you dream about? Chuyo Lang frowned and didn't speak for a while. Joe Man pushed him a bit, say it, maybe it'll be better if you say you're sick. Joe Hulang said helplessly, it's just a nightmare, it's a mess. I first dreamed that I fell into the sea and drowned, and then I dreamed that an assassin appeared on the boat and killed me, and you and Bai Shan also met an assassin. He frowned and said, anyway, it was just a mess of nightmares, and then woke up. Bai Shan was surprised and asked sharply, why does the fourth brother think that Man Bao and I will meet an assassin? Joe Man's encounter with the assassin was not publicized by the two of them. Except for Bai Erlang and Yin Or, no one else in the family knew about it, let alone Thursday Lang, who had just returned. See you tomorrow, good night.